Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
What is strength? What do we mean when we say strength? Is it how much weight you can lift? Is it how far you can run? Is it how much work you can get done in a day? What is strength? What do we mean when we say someone is strong? Well, we're going to see strength today. And my guess is retired General Gregg Martin. And he's going to talk to me and we're going to talk about together what it's like to battle through some really difficult things. So, General, I want to get you on as soon as possible. So welcome.
Hey, thanks, Justin. Great to be on with you.
Thank you. So, General, tell us a little bit about your story, why you're here, what we're going to talk about today.
Well, thanks, Justin. So I was unknowingly born with a bipolar brain, and I lived pretty much my whole life on the bipolar spectrum. And it mostly helped me until it didn't. So living on the bipolar spectrum, a condition called hyperthymia, which is a near continuous low-level mania, gave me extra energy, drive, enthusiasm, creativity, problem-solving skills. And that was all wonderful. It helped me tremendously as a student, athlete, and leader from high school through West Point and into the Army. But at a certain point in my early 40s, it started to go from low-level mania to higher levels, and then bipolar disorder itself kicked in, and I started going into higher highs, lower lows, and then ultimately rocketed into full-blown mania in 2014, followed by crippling depression plus terrifying psychosis, and sort of my whole life blew up. And I was fired, forced to retire, ordered to get a psychiatric evaluation, and then hospitalized 10 years ago.
When did you first notice that you had any kind of symptoms of mental illness at all? Was it as a teenager or earlier or later?
Well, I never noticed that I had any symptoms like at all until I was into my 50s. Now, looking back in the rearview mirror, I can clearly see evidence of mental illness, bipolar disorder, as early as my college years, and in my teens and 20s. I can see it now, but I had no idea that that was a problem then. The first time I really noticed that, I may have some issues is when I got back from a year of combat in Iraq. I got home in 2004, back to Germany, and I went from what I now know was a state of mostly mania in Iraq, and it was mostly a high performing mania. When we got home to Germany, I crashed into depression. And I knew there was something wrong. And when you do your post-deployment screening, you talk to a psychiatrist or a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I told them, I said, hey, I think I'm really depressed. And we had a conversation, and they said, you're fine. Then about a year later, I went on my own to the doctor and said, hey, I think I have depression. And they looked at me, and all they could see was a successful senior officer. And so they said, oh, you're fine. And again, a third time I went. And then I also went, after I got fired in 2014, I went to the psychiatrist because I was ordered to. I didn't think there was anything wrong, but I went in 3 times in a state of mania, and they said, "You're fine." And it wasn't until the seventh time, November of 2014, that I went in a terrible state of depression, and the doctor said, "Hey, you're obviously depressed." And this time my wife came to the appointment with me, and she provided key collateral information and said, "Hey, doctor, yes, he's depressed now, but before he was manic." And the doctor said, "Well, what do you mean by manic?" And she described it. And then the lights went on for this doctor, and he said, "Aha, okay, bipolar disorder, mania, depression." And he got the diagnosis correct. And so, there were those times in depression that I mentioned that I realized something's happening, but then I was told you're fine. And then it was when the doctor actually told me bipolar disorder when I was in a state of depression, and I was able to connect it to the mania before that. That's when I could see, okay, yes, I have a serious mental illness. Um, and here's what it is. And I actually accepted and embraced it. I didn't fight it at all.
And it's funny as you're talking about that. I think people throw around the word manic very, very freely. What did that mean to you? What did manic look like for you?
So there's different levels from, euthymia. Euthymic is sort of the steady state baseline, no depression, no up, no down, you're just steady. Um, so mania starts, it can start at a very low level that's incredibly helpful. And it's usually called, different levels of hypomania, low level of mania. And again, like I said earlier, it gives you extra energy, drive, enthusiasm. You're often up and positive and enthusiastic, and that's wonderful. And it helps your performance like it did mine. But when mania goes too high, and there's actually a set of criteria in the psychiatric manual, um, what it looks like is hyper energy, talking so fast people can hardly keep up with you, having a flights of ideas where your brain's going so fast with so many new ideas that nobody can keep up with you. It's being extremely impulsive and making rash um, decisions that don't make sense, like leaving a great job you might have to go do nothing, but you're going to go try, painting or something. Um,
Right.
you're an engineer making big bucks, and you're going to go be a painter out in California all of a sudden. Hypersexuality, where somebody will go have, crazy affairs all over the place. Religiosity, where they think they are, the savior or an apostle or their God, or they have some special God connection. Grandiosity, where they think they have, like in my case, I thought I had the key to world peace. Um, Other people with a sense of grandiosity, they think they are the savior or have ideas that can save the world. So those are just a few of the symptoms of actual diagnosable mania.
Have you ever, in my experience with mental illness, and we talked about this a little bit before the show, about a year ago, I was in the psychiatric ward because of depression. Did you ever get to the point where you have so many things going on in your mind, so many things you want to do that you just can't do anything? You're paralyzed.
Yes, that has happened. It has for sure. It's like I've had so many ideas, and in my mind, especially when I'm in mania, they're not only good ideas, they're great ideas, and I'm in love with these ideas. And I've got a direct feed from God or the universe coming into my mind, and it's like you, I had so many things going on, but I couldn't focus. I couldn't get anything done because I was so distracted.
And, I don't think people really realize that that's a part of this. I think that they think, well, you just don't feel like doing it, or you just don't have the confidence to do it, or whatever it is. But for people who are in a position like us, it's not that, is it?
No, I mean, you're right. I mean, there is, like, with the issues of mental health and mental illness, and in my case, bipolar disorder. I mean, it's biologically, physiologically real. I mean, we now know through research and science that there's actual dynamics going on in the chemistry and the wiring and the electrical functioning inside the brain itself. So it's not like I know for sure in my case, it's not due to a lack of willpower. I'm not trying hard enough, or I lack character. It's my brain was really messed up and things weren't connecting and firing correctly.
How do you get people to realize that? I think in my case, and I'm guessing you have the same series of issues when people are just like, well, I don't get it. I just don't understand what you're talking about because they haven't felt it. How do we explain this to people?
I think the most important thing we can do is have people who have experienced these mental health conditions or who have the expert knowledge through study. So, either expert by lived experience or expert through study. They need to tell what they know. So, speaking, writing, interviews like what we're doing here tonight. I think this is a great example because people connect to stories. So the audience that's sitting out there, they hear us having this discussion, two real humans. They can see and listen to and hear a story from two very credible people. That is what's going to change people's minds and educate them. And a lot of the stigma against mental illness is based on fear and ignorance. So we can help address the ignorance issue by telling our story. And then the fear will dissipate as they see and listen to real people who are credible.
And you've been very open about it. You're on the show right now. You've written a book. Have you ever been chastised by anyone who says, why are you so open? You got to keep these things quiet. Don't say anything.
Yes, I have. It's it's really interesting. When I first started speaking and then started writing, and then I put the book together. Yeah, there were people who said, um, "Why do you have to talk about this? Why can't you just keep it quiet? Keep it private?" And I said, because, there's a whole lot of people, there's millions of people suffering in silence like I did. And I've got a story to tell. I have credibility. I'm not going to keep it quiet. I'm going to tell the story to help educate people and stop stigma, promote recovery, and help save lives. So that was just a decision that I made. But yes, a lot of people said, man, Greg, just, zip it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very open myself about it, and I get the same thing where people say, why are you so transparent? But I kind of feel the same way that you do. I think that if we start to show people that real people have these problems and we're not crazy, we're just ill, that it'll make a difference.
Absolutely. It's interesting. There's no stigma against a person with diabetes or cancer or heart disease. Nobody criticizes them. And people with those conditions, they go get help. They get the medical plan and they work at it, and there's no shame or stigma. And it should be the same way for mental health issues, especially in this day and age when we scientifically know it's real. It's not make believe in your mind.
I guess it's the kind of thing, if you can't see it, it's not real to people. They have to be able to see it, touch it, feel it. And I've actually said to people, when they say, what do you have to be depressed about? I've used a similar analogy that you just did. What do you have to be diabetes about? What do you have to be cancer about? What do you have to be HIV about? It's a disease.
That's a great comeback. I never thought of that. That's really smart. I'm going to start using that one. I really
Yeah, it's
like.
just I feel like that's the exact thing that they ask people like us. Why are you depressed? I didn't choose to be this way. It wasn't a decision. Or my other favorite, and Greg, you might have heard this too, just change your line of thinking.
Right. Exactly. And what people don't realize about depression is, like, I was in a state of terrible depression for about 2 years. After I went into that full blown mania, got fired, retired, everything. So it was about 2 years of depression, and people would say just what you said. Hey, what do you have to be depressed about? Get over it. Pick yourself up and go. But what people don't realize is that inside my brain, the brain wasn't working correctly. The chemicals like dopamine and others that the brain produces, that actually inside your brain, they create this sensation of happiness and give you energy and that sort of thing. Those functions weren't working right. So my brain wasn't producing the dopamine and other key ingredients to allow me to go into a state of happiness. So I just stayed depressed, meaning very, very low psychomotor excitation and energy. So between the mind and the body, everything dropped. And so all the strong will and the self positive thinking, all of that in the world was not going to change that chemical imbalance and chemical underproduction. It just wasn't going to happen. Now, there is a role for all the positive thinking and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I totally, I am a beneficiary of that today in my psychotherapy and meditation and positive thinking and gratitude practices and all those things. That's really, really important. But it's no substitute for getting the brain and the brain chemistry functioning and up to a healthy level.
So, General, when you were in that depressive mood, what would your day look like when you were totally down and at the depths?
Oh my gosh. Um, well, I would I would go to bed gladly, willingly, drop and I would say a prayer that God, take me during my sleep. I don't want to live anymore. It's too painful. I would rather be dead. The world's better off without me. Just, take me, let my life, expire while I'm in bed tonight. So that would be my closing thought. And then I would wake up in the morning and just have no energy, no willpower, no excitement, no drive, no purpose. I wasn't hungry for food. I would just lie there and in like kind of a fog, like a zombie. It was very, very difficult most days to get out of bed. I just didn't have the energy or the motivation even to get up. And most days I eventually would get up, get out of bed, and go get a drink of water, a cup of coffee, something to eat. Um, but I also had this psychosis, these delusions, and we were living up in New Hampshire, and I would look out the window into the woods, and I would have um, hallucinations that this great big boa constrictor snake would come out of the woods and come in and crush the life out of me and just squeeze the air and the energy and the will. And I literally would, many, many days, I would just lie on the couch like a zombie, staring up at the ceiling or out the window. And then I would ruminate. I would have just, my mind would replay like every mistake I ever made, like in my life. It would replay it over and over. And it was a torturous situation, that I would just condemn myself for these mistakes and being, dumb and and that sort of thing. Um, then I would I would oftentimes fall asleep, and I would have terrible delusions and hallucinations that I later realized were passive suicidal ideations, where I my mind would created this story that I believed of people out to get me. I was being spied on, that there were spies and agents, and they were plotting to arrest me, convict me of crimes that I had committed against the government when I was in the Army, which, of course, none of that ever happened, and then get me convicted, put in jail, and then in jail that I would be, I'd be in a, really high security jail, that I would be, beaten, tortured, and then ultimately killed in jail. And I mean, just terrible, terrible delusions and hallucinations. Um, and then I would oftentimes I would and now I realize that these states of depression were what they call a mixed state. So while I was in depression, I would oftentimes zip up into a high energy state of very agitated, irritated, angry mania. And I would like get very agitated, excited, and I would, start punching myself. I would yell. I would bang. I would hit my head on the floor. Um, and I mean, this was happening, and it was really troubling. I didn't understand what was going on because nobody had talked about a mixed state. I've only learned about that recently, but it's literally, you're in depression, and then suddenly, for a brief period, whoom, you'll shoot up into this mania, and then you'll come back down. That's actually the most dangerous time for suicide for bipolar people. People with bipolar are 40 times more likely to die by suicide than people without bipolar. And the most dangerous time is in a mixed state because when a person is in deep depression, they're often thinking about suicide. They want to die, and so that's but they often have so little energy or ability to focus, they can't pull it together and actually kill themselves. But when you suddenly zip from the depressed state into mania, then all of a sudden you have the energy, the focus, the drive, the ability to do it, and that's when they now say most of the bipolar suicides happen.
Wow, that is scary. That's really scary. And you took my breath away 3 or 4 times as you were speaking because I said those same prayers. I remember saying to God, let me go. I remember even cursing at God and saying, yeah, why are you letting me stay? Give it to somebody who actually wants it. I don't want it. And, that's a terrible place to be. I mean, it's just desperate at that point.
Justin, absolutely. And I mean, I've been really for my whole life a person of faith. Um, and, my Christian faith really was a pillar. But I was angry at God. I mean, there were times I yelled at God. I was like, why did you do this to me? Why did you let this happen? Why are you ruining and wasting my life? I have so much potential that I can do good, but it's like it's over. And what what I didn't realize is that God had a plan all along, and part of the plan was for me to plunge into this terrible, awful state, and then recover from it and really do what I'm doing now, which is speaking, telling my story, encouraging, giving hope to people who have no hope.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that's the way I keep thinking about it myself is that it wasn't suffering for suffering's sake. It was for this conversation right now and for all the people in the future that it might help.
Yeah, one of the things that's kind of cool while we're on the topic of God. So my background is mostly Catholic, and my mother, we were living. My mom lived with my wife and I, and so she always goes to mass, and so she would sort of drag me with her to mass every Sunday. I mean, I didn't have the energy or the motivation, but she would like kind of badger me to go. And I would go in and I would just sit there like a zombie in mass. And I just was in my own depressed, dark, black world. But one of the things that did is they had these special healing masses where they do the anointing of the sick. This was really cool. And I actually told my mom, I said, hey, I want to do that. Let's try it. And, you know, the priest gives a special mass and they have the special holy oil. And there's they pray over you and they put the oil like on in my case on my head and put their hands on you and pray. That was pretty cool. I was hoping for a miracle. I didn't notice anything that happened out of these special, you know, anointing of the oil and the healing in the hands. But who knows? Maybe it, you know, helped move me along, nudged me a little bit, so that when I finally started taking lithium, it had more of an effect. But that was kind of a cool experience.
Yeah, that is cool. The insidiousness of mental illness it's amazing how many areas it touches. But one of the things that I wasn't able to do for a long time was go to church because I am Catholic as well. Because I'd walk in, I'd cry as I got there, and I would be crying on the way out. And I just got to the point where I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't go.
Yeah, I totally understand and empathize. I can feel that. Um, the Yeah, I had a period like that, and then I also had periods where I really wanted to go to church. Like I even there was a period when I was depressed um, before I got out of the army, and I was in Washington D.C. and there were a whole bunch of Catholic churches near where I lived, and I had a period where I went to mass every single day for months at a time, like every day. And I would ask the priest, I would say, hey, um, you know, I'm really depressed. I have bipolar disorder. Can we do confession? And they always say yes. After mass, say yeah. And what I found was talking to the priest was like talking to a therapist. I mean, they all have really good backgrounds in counseling and psychology and that kind of a thing. But I found it really helpful that combination of religion, spirituality, psychology, emotion. And so that actually, it was a helpful thing for me. It was kind of like a little bit of a lifeline, like I was in stormy seas and I was kind of going underwater and everything was really, really bad. And it was like going to mass, talking to the priest, doing confession was like grabbing hold of a lifesaver.
Yeah, you are so desperate for those things at those times, right? I mean, it's just a feeling of please let there be something that gives me relief.
Yes, for sure. I mean, I was looking for any kind of help I could get. I mean, I was willing to grab onto anything. And to me, um, other than those really bleak times when I was really angry at God, for me, my faith, religion, God were lifesavers. They were things that I could grab onto and keep myself from going under.
You spoke about the anger too, and I have pictures of my chest from when I pounded it so hard that it was purple and green and black from the bruising that I put on my own chest just by punching myself. Um, and one of the things I've noticed since I've gotten better out of the hospital is the anger is I still get angry, but nowhere near the explosions that I had before. Did you feel that as well?
Yes. So, yeah, the anger thing with bipolar disorder, both in the mania side and in the depression side, it really, really is significant. And but once I started my recovery a ago, um, things, you know, I still would do blips up into fairly modest levels of mania. I still occasionally will have dips down into, you know, somewhat modest levels of depression. And with that comes the irritability, the anger issues, that kind of thing. And what I've really learned how to do, and this was working with my psychotherapist, um, is is to do meditation, mindfulness, gratitude journaling, um, spiritual reflection, prayer, things like that that help bring the anger down. It's sort of like um, it sort of takes the pressure out of it and slows me down to where I'm calmer and more peaceful.
I think what you're describing is anger management. And what's funny to me is, excuse me, people will say, Justin, I thought you didn't get angry anymore. And that's crazy. I mean, we all get angry at different times. The difference is the control over the anger. Anger management is not, I'll never get angry again. It's controlling the anger when it happens.
Yeah, Justin, what are your key techniques for anger management in your life? I'm wondering. I'm genuinely trying to learn from you because I mean, it seems like you really know a lot about that.
Honestly, for me, it's the fear of never wanting to go back to where I was. That if I allow myself to explode and have those moments, I don't want a chance going back. It's almost like an alcoholic where you don't want to take that first sip because if you do that, you have no idea if you're going to go back. And I refuse to go back.
That's super interesting. A lot of people with bipolar disorder will, at some point get on the right medications for them. You know, there's a number of different ones, but they'll get on the right meds, and then they'll their symptoms will go way, way down. They'll feel good, and they'll say, "Oh, I'm healed. Everything's fine. I'll stop taking my medications." And they do, and then oftentimes the bipolar disorder comes roaring back and just rips their life apart. And so I have exactly the same motivation as what you just said. I absolutely am going to keep taking my medications because I never want to go back to the condition I was in. I never want that again. It was horrible. It was awful. It was also very dangerous. It was dangerous for me, my family, other people. And so that's my motivation is just stay well, keep on top of this thing, and don't let it come back.
What are your thoughts on medication? Do you feel like a lot of people want to stay away from it? In fact, pardon me, I was on Valium for 18 years, benzos, and I've been off of them for a year now, which is feels great to not have to be
Good.
on them. Yeah, it feels really good. And there is a withdrawal period. Have you gone through any of that with any medications where you went through withdrawal or any side effects?
Okay, so when I first got diagnosed in 2014 with bipolar disorder, up to that point, so I was 58. I had never been diagnosed with anything, so I had never taken medication for any mental health condition or anything. And then all of a sudden, when they got the diagnosis, I was in a really, really bad place, and so they started prescribing me antipsychotics, which there's a number of antipsychotics that are quite good and for bipolar disorder. So they tried a bunch of these, but none of them worked. I mean, all they did for me was put me to sleep, and they didn't change the course of the bipolar illness. Um, then I got on some other medications that, again, didn't have any noticeable effect. Finally, I got on lithium. I started taking lithium, and the lithium really is amazing. It was remarkably effective in um, managing and changing the course of my bipolar illness. Like I had been depressed for 2 years, and before that, I had been manic for a long time. And once I started taking lithium, the depression went away, the psychosis went away, and the suicidality, wanting to die, went away, and mania has not come back. So it was very, very effective for me. As far as side effects, there was tremors in my hands. That was a side effect that I had to work with my doctor to figure out how to manage, control, And a lot of that was reducing the level of lithium. Um, it also had an effect on my balance. I became more imbalanced physically. I put on some weight. My coordination had suffered. Um, so I had to work on regaining all of those things. So I've got a pretty good handle on all of it. Once I started getting healthy 10 years ago with the lithium, I started a very disciplined, rigorous physical fitness program that had balance, you know, cardio, strength, all the different elements of a good program. And so I've actually been quite healthy and had, very little negative side effects over the course of years of taking meds.
I think it's a great point because so many people are afraid to take medication and think that I don't want to be on anything. I'll try the holistic route or whatever, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes you actually need those pharmaceuticals. Um, I've pretty much been on almost anything you could think of since 1997. When I was a kid, I was in therapy 3 days a week at 8 years old. They didn't do medication for kids back then.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that didn't start until I was 22 years old. So, yeah, the medications I think are, as you said, are a huge part of this.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I think about medications like, do I need them? Do I not need them? Would I be better without them? And all that. Um, the fact is I hadn't taken any medications. I hadn't taken anything. And I can see how my brain was sort of coming undone with the bipolar disorder. And it got really, really bad. And I tried to get better on my own, but I couldn't, because I had this bipolar illness inside my brain that I couldn't control. um, but once I got that right medication, and that was 2 years after diagnosis, so I got the diagnosis. It took 2 years before they figured out the right med for me. Once I got on that medication, and interestingly, lithium is a natural element. It's harvested out of the earth, so it was actually created by Mother Nature during the Big Bang. And but once I got on that, these terrible symptoms, for the most part, went away. And so I thought, should I take meds? Shouldn't I take meds? I mean, to me, in my case, it was pretty clear that I was very sick. And then once I started taking medications, I got solid, started getting healthy, and now I've really rebuilt a whole new life.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, and it goes back to what we said earlier. It's if you have diabetes, you have to take your insulin shots. You can't just
Right,
say, well, I feel great the last couple months, so let's just pretend I don't have it.
right.
And I think what you're saying is important that people have to remember that, yeah, you're ill. You have to treat the illness.
Yes.
What would you say to a 20-some-year-old man or woman who's thinking about, I'll never get out of this? I'm in this hole. It's deep, it's dark, and there's no way out. What would you say to that person?
I would say don't give up. There is hope. You can get better, and you will get better if you take the right steps to get a handle on the mental health condition.
Yeah. And I think, as we talked about tonight, to see people like us who have been to the point where we didn't want to live anymore. I mean, we literally asked God, let us go. Just let it go. That's about as low as it gets. It doesn't really get any lower than that. So if we were able to pull out of that, I would
Yeah.
hope that they would think they could too.
So I was in that state, 10, 12 years ago. I had given up. I had no hope. I thought I would never get better. And I had a friend who was, I call him a battle buddy from the army. And, he came alongside me. He wouldn't give up. He kept trying to get a hold of me. And when I wouldn't answer his calls or his emails or his text messages, he would go through my wife. And he stayed engaged and he said, Greg, you're going to get better. And here's what we need to do. We need to get you in, number one, we got to get you to see a doctor. And by the way, this is the advice I would give to the 20-year-old that you had just talked about a minute ago. But go see a doctor, get medical help. Um, and if they're prescribing medication, then do the medication. If they're prescribing therapy, do it. Um, then learn everything you can about your condition. So study it, learn. Go online, listen to podcasts, listen to lectures, read what's written, which I did for bipolar disorder, and then develop a strategy. Come up with a strategy in working with the medical professionals, a holistic plan, mind, body, spirit, and then come up with a day-to-day, on the ground, step by step, how you're going to actually get yourself well. Um, that's, to me, is the key. And then don't give up, persevere, stick with it. Reach out to other people who have the same condition. Like for me, there are some wonderful bipolar organizations and bipolar support groups that I've made some phenomenal friends. I've learned a lot. I've gotten a lot of encouragement. I've been able to encourage a lot of people, help them with my experiences and lessons learned. And so I think that's kind of the key. And with the state of modern medicine, you there are treatments that can get a hold of these mental conditions and help a person to live a happy, healthy, purposeful life. You just have to embrace the condition, learn, and then go do it day by day.
Great points. Really, really important. Greg, I wish we had hours to talk because it's really neat to be able to get a perspective from someone who has actually been there. So I really appreciate your openness and your sharing.
Well, Justin, it's great to hear your perspective. I mean, I really admire you for what you've done and been through and accomplished. And now the way that you're an advocate and a spokesperson for mental health, I think that's fantastic with the platform you have. That's cool. That's really, really great what you're doing.
Really appreciate that. And the feeling's mutual. And there's your book. So we want to make sure that people know where to get your book, Bipolar General. And Greg, tell us where we can find the book and where we can find you.
So you can find the book anywhere books are sold. Probably the easiest place is to just go on to Amazon and order it. The book's gotten really, really good reviews. It's gone global and led to all kinds of speaking opportunities and conferences and leadership positions in different mental health organizations. So anyway, the book, I would say just go to Amazon. Um, let's see, how can people get a hold of me? I've got a website, bipolargeneral.com. It's got a lot of good info. It's got an email link to me, or feel free to just send me an email at gregmartin79@gmail.com.
Well, General, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show this week. And I hope we get to do it again sometime. I really do.
I would love that, Justin. Just give me a yell.
Sounds great. Take care and thank you. Folks, that's what a hero looks like. That's somebody who fought wars and fought the internal war and won. So I want to thank General Gregg Martin again for being a guest on the show. Thank you for watching and thank you for any chats that we had this week. Sorry, we can get to all of those, the comments. But there's my website, just for you, JustForYoutC.com. You can reach me at Justin at justforyoutc.com. And I train people in AI. I also train the Microsoft applications. So if your company has a need, reach out. It's starting to blossom. So just want to know that the time is of the essence. And there's my charity, Checkmates Charitable Association, www.checkmatescharity.com. And we help people with ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, ostomy patients, mental health patients. So we're trying to branch out as much as we can. So please support us in any way you can. All right. I will see you next week. Thank you for being here this week, and enjoy the rest of your week.
What if many of the problems we associate with aging are not random? What if there are identifiable causes behind declining energy, chronic disease, and memory problems? We have been told that aging is simply something we must accept, that slowing down is normal, that growing older means growing weaker. But what if that's only part of the story? Why do some people remain active and engaged well into their later years? Why do others struggle with disease, fatigue, and declining health? What is happening beneath the surface? What processes drive aging? In Aging Sucks, researcher, educator, and author Red O'Loughlin explores what researchers have discovered about why we grow older. No medical degree required, no confusing jargon, just clear explanations of what researchers have discovered about the processes that influence aging. You cannot stop aging, but understanding its causes may help you make better decisions about your health, your future, and your quality of life. Because understanding comes before action. Action creates hope. Aging sucks. End the guesswork. There is hope.
My Tummy Hurts by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Meet Jackie. She loves recess, running with friends, and laughing on the playground. At school, Jackie tries to play like she always does, but suddenly the pain comes back. Lately, something feels different and her tummy hurts, sometimes a little and sometimes a lot. With the help of a caring teacher, a nurse, her mom, and a kind doctor, Jackie begins to understand what her body is trying to tell her. Sometimes tummy pain is more than a simple bellyache. Some children live with conditions like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease. Jackie listens to her body. She asks for help. She knows she's not alone. And Jackie finds her way back to running, laughing, and being herself. My Tummy Hurts, a kid's guide to bellyaches and bathroom troubles by Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, available on Amazon and in fine bookstores around the world.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA-Global-TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.